So we're going to continue on with our doing if statements and pretty much conditional stuff. So we're going to take a look at doing switch statements. Um, so let's just start with the very basic structure of a switch statement. Okay. So I can go ahead and it's just a clean file, and I'm going to make inti, which is an integer I equals 2. And the body of a switch statement looks something like this. You just write the word switch, I. So I'm going to switch based on whatever the value is stored in I. And then open curly brace. I'm holding shift and enter here. And that's going to create the secondary curly brace for me. And then you just tab in and just kind of write out case. And the number is 0 here. So it's going to actually check if the case is 0. And then you put a colon there, and then after it, whatever you want it to do. So system.out dot print line. I'm going to end that line with a semicolon. And then after that, I'm going to put in a break statement. Semicolon. So we can write something in here. The value is 0, right? Or we can write the value stored in I is 0. And notice that we have inti here. And you don't have to go in consecutive order. It doesn't have to be case 0, 1, 2, whatever, but we're going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to paste that here. And I'm going to change this to 35. And I'm going to change this to 2. And I'm going to write the number 2 here. And then I'm just going to write the numbers 35 here just to sort of speed up the video. Okay? So let's go ahead and hit F11 to test this. You can see the value stored in I is 2. So it found our case down here, regardless of the order of these numbers. So let's take a look at sort of wrapping this in a for loop so that we can search or sort through an array. Okay, and we haven't done a lot of, we haven't really done anything with for loops so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment this out. So a trick to commenting a big block of code inside of Eclipse is if you hold Control Shift and /, you can comment a whole section like that. And what comments do is they become, we don't run the code. It becomes more of something that we could send off to another programmer. So after this, I'm just going to write for, open close parentheses, open curly brace. And again, I'm still holding shift here and I hit enter. So there's 3 parts to a for statement. There's the initializer, there's a condition, and then there's some way of incrementing or decrementing. It's called a counter. So let's talk about initializing a variable. So I'm going to say I equals 0 here. Semicolon. I is less than 10, semicolon. And then I'm going to increment through I. So what this is checking is, I'm going to continuously run this loop as long as I is less than 0. And then plus plus is sort of the same as saying I equals I plus 1. And it's going to continuously loop through this. So the first time it runs through the loop, it checks if I is equal to 0. After that, it negates this, or it doesn't think about it anymore, and it just focuses on these two, which is checking if I is less than 10, and then it increments I. Let me go ahead and delete this comment out here. And then all I'm going to say here is print, or I'm sorry, system, I'm thinking of C here, .out, .print, line, so that we have my consecutive lines, I, and I is a variable, and then a semicolon on the end. So let me go ahead and hit F11 so you can see. Looks like I forgot something here. There's a problem with this line of code. Oh, I never actually gave I a data type or initialized I. So I'm just going to write inti here. That should clear up all of our problems. Let's hit F11, and you can see we get 0 through 9. Because we're actually starting at 0, and we're going 10 spaces. So if you count 0 to 9, and you include 0, it equals 10. So let's take a look at combining both of these guys together. So I'm just going to take this switch statement, copy it, delete this system.outPrintI, and I'm going to paste it in here. And just for readability, I'm going to go ahead and delete my whole switch statement and this variable declaration here. Now what we have here is integer I equals 1 through 9. And we have case 0, system.printout 0. And I'm going to change this one to 1. I'm going to make this number 1. And again, it's just checking at this point the I value. And then we're going to stop at 2. And I'm going to write something else called, which is a default statement. And what default does is if none of these, or if all of these are run, and we run out of things that we're sort of looping through, what default will do will give us a default value. So whether any of these are true or false or whatever, default is going to sort of run. So let's go ahead and write system.out.println. And I'm just going to write I continues on. Let's hit F11. Forget something. Is our error? Oh, we might have one extra curly brace than we need. No, that's not right. Insert. Oh, we might need one more. So that's for that, and this is for this. Let's throw one more. And that's this. You might run into this problem yourselves with all the by holding Shift and Enter. Sometimes you'll delete or add an additional one that you don't need. So let's hit F11 here, and you'll see it says the value stored in I is 0. So it prints that, and then default, and then it continues on. Okay. So it continuously runs I continues on because it's going to finish off the rest of our loop here. So let's take a look at, now that we sort of understand the switch statement, let's take a look at nesting switch statements within each other. So I'm just going to copy this, and then again for readability I'm going to delete this just so you can see that we have a for statement here with a switch. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just do this from scratch at this point. So we have these two, we have one extra, so we just have sort of a clean public class here. So I'm going to create a character, and we'll call it ch1, and we'll make that equal to a. Okay, and then what I'm going to say here is switch I'm going to switch based on the ch1 value, and I'm going to paste inside of here. So remember, I'm missing the open curly brace and the closing curly brace here, and we do not need this colon here. Okay, so let's take a look at this for readability. So we don't want case 0 here, right? We want to check if it's A. Okay. Now, if it's A, I don't want to print a line or break at this point. Okay. What I'd like to do is if it is A, I would like to actually activate another switch statement. So I'm just going to tab that in a little bit here, and I'm going to write switch again. And inside of this switch statement, I'm going to also check just check ch1 again. Try that. All right. So let's print, or for just for clearness, let's go ahead and do system.out.println, and I'm going to say we are outside of the first switch. We're outside of the second switch. And then I'm going to copy this line here. And I'm not putting a break there because I want it to move on. I'm going to write we are inside of the second switch here. All right, so what it's checking is if this is A and this is A, right, we're going to print these two statements. Okay? And let's see how we run it without the breaks and see what happens. You can see that it says we are outside of the second switch because ch1 is the same as A, and we're inside of the second switch. And then let's try that source format. There we go. And that cleans up our code.